Yo, what is up, guys? Joker here bringing you another video, this time for the 3.26 league. Oh boy, it feels weird kind of saying that because we've been expecting this for so long, but now that we actually have a little bit of news, this is going to be my preemptive theory crafting video about it, just because of the fact that I don't want to wait 2 weeks and I want to say I told you so. So, up first, we have the announcement post, right? There's not a lot of info that we were able to actually really get from this video. We have this hooded figure who's most likely going to be tied to the season mechanic spawning this portal. I'm getting a vibe of breach, deli, a map within a map type thing, or access to the dream world through that portal. So, like, it alters the way that we do maps, potentially something like that, right? That's all I can think of for the league mechanic itself based off of the video that we have. So hopefully it's something like a breach or a deli or expedition, right? Where it just pops in your map and it does something to the map at that point. Hopefully it's not another separate zone because I'm not a fan of side zone league mechanics. It's been a while since we've had a good in map league mechanic. So that's what I'm hoping and calling for, is it's going to be some kind of in map strategy. Not strategy, league. Moving on to the teaser image that we got on May 20th, we have a journal with a couple of key indicators, right? There's a couple of there's a couple of words underlined it, the originator and not when I'm this close, right? Then we have a picture of the atlas over here with some scrambling. Then we have a compass pocket watch looking device, a pin, and rose petals. So initially what this gives the vibes of is this is Zana's journal, right? The reason why I say that is because this is the journal of someone who's been investigating or exploring the atlas, and canonically Zana's the only person I know that has been doing that. So we have rose petals over here. That's also kind of a giveaway. They're once again canonically kind of tied to Zana. Like rose petals and Zana have always been like an indicator. Like this is referencing Zana, right? As well as I don't know who else would be exploring the Atlas. I mean, my only other guess is Alva because of the compass looking thing, but that really doesn't fit, especially since it's a picture of the Atlas and they're trying to find the originator. The only one that has this deep of a connection to the Atlas is Zana, because she's trying to get her father back from being Shaper, right? So I'm assuming that we're either going to run into this hooded guy and he's going to be bringing us something, either the journal, and say that something happened to Zana and he found the journal, or Zana is going to come back and say that she found the journal, that she found some secrets of the Atlas that she needs to tell us. That's what I'm assuming. So, like, one of those things. We're either going to find this journal, figure out something happened to Zana. The hooded man's going to give us this journal and say something's happened to Zana. Or Zana's going to bring it back and say, hey, this is what I found out. I need your help. Moving on from that, let's go into the pure speculation portion of this video. Some of the things that I'm assuming or hoping will happen just purely based on previous expansions. Starting us off with probably the most obvious assumption is something is going to change about the end game progression system or the Atlas, right? I'm calling that right now. They've never had an expansion where the end game Atlas is not impacted, and usually rather drastically, right? When the War of the Atlas happened, that introduced Elder and like the Elder influence invading the Atlas. When we received Conquerors of the Atlas, the Conquerors had like their own citadels, and the map Atlas was broken up into 8 chunks. When we got Echoes of the Atlas, Maven became a thing, and fighting 10-way fights was a thing. Completing a map and capturing the map boss was a thing. And then when Eater and Exarch came, Eater and Exarch became a major part of endgame mapping, right? It's integral to mapping. Imagine running maps with no influence on them. They would be insanely bad. On top of that, the Atlas has gone through drastic visual changes, right? We went from the War of the Atlas, where it spawns the 2 influences and like little bubbles, and then like I mentioned, I don't remember exactly how you spread it because I didn't play back then. Then with the Conquerors of the Atlas, we received the Citadels. Then with the Echoes of the Atlas, it introduced Maven. Nothing really changed besides the Atlas passive skill tree. Oh wait, no, that's a massive change. What the fuck? What am I? So yeah, drastically changed because the Atlas passive tree became a thing. And then we have Siege of the Atlas, which has us adding Searing Exarch and Eater influence on to the Atlas, as well as it changed from the Citadel system to the current system that we have. So the first thing that I'm saying is something drastic is going to happen to the Atlas. Moving on to the second most obvious assumption, and that's going to be progression of the storyline, right? Essentially, how it went is we were running the Atlas, we found Shaper, we killed a Shaper, Elder began to invade the Atlas, we killed Elder, then we found that the Atlas drives you to madness the longer you stay in it, essentially, and the Conquerors of the Atlas are former exiles that stayed in there too long and went insane. Then we have the Echoes of the Atlas. We were in the Atlas so long that we drew the attention of the Maven, and that's when 10-way fights became a thing because she found the Atlas map bosses, she captures them, and she wants you to kill them, right? And then you can fight her. But at the end of her fight, not at the end of her fight, just during her fight, right? Like leading up until the 10 ways and the Maven fight and everything, the lore that's dropped on us is that the Maven is essentially a child. It's a hatchling of this Eldritch being race. And then in Siege of the Atlas, we got introduced to one of the more evolved or more grown species in this Eldritch race of Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds, right? Because they always refer to Maven as the hatchling. So I think it goes like Maven and then like Uneating Hunger and Black Star, and then Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds. So it's like baby, first form, second form, but it's been very indicated that there is that higher power than Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds. Sorry for the lore dump, but I just had to make the entire statement kind of relevant, right? The third thing that I'm claiming as a no-brainer is new boss/bosses. We're going to be receiving at least one new pinnacle boss. I'm calling it because we've received a new pinnacle boss every expansion, right? The first expansion, we got Elder. The second expansion, we got Sirius and the Conquerors. The third expansion, we got Maven, and then we also got no, we only got the Maven, right? And then after that, we received Black Star, Infinite Hunger, Searing Exarch, and Eater of Worlds. So every expansion has brought at least one new end game boss. And this next reference is going to be relatively nerdy, actually. If you don't watch anime, you probably won't understand it, but I have a feeling it's going to be something like in Naruto and Boruto, where there is that Eldritch clan, right? That higher level building, the Asutsuki, essentially, or Otosuki, if you ever hear Sasuke say it in English dub in Boruto. This is what Kaguya was, a hatchling of, essentially, right? Kaguya was a low level peon in this clan. She was essentially Maven. And as the story for Boruto has progressed, we've been introduced to higher level Otsutsuki's. Otsutsuki's, I'm probably going to swap between those two constantly. But these are essentially godlike beings, right? Also known as celestial beings. And the reason why I'm using that reference is we were introduced to Maven, right? Kaguya. And then there was a foreshadowing that there was a higher power than her in her like race. And then in Naruto, how that works is what is his name? Kenshiki and Momoshiki. Yeah, Momoshiki and Kenshiki attack in like the very start of Boruto. That's essentially the Eater of Exarch and Eater of Worlds and Searing Exarch. But in Boruto, there's been a like god level being named Shibai, right? I believe Shibai. Yeah. Shibai was the god level being. He was like the pinnacle. He accrued so much power that he left his body and essentially became a god living on another plane. So I'm assuming something similar to that. We're going to find something that the Eater of Exarch and why do I keep saying that? Eater of Worlds and Searing Exarch, like they're a higher ranked life form than them. It's going to be a new pinnacle boss, almost 100% guaranteed once again. What are we at now? 4, right? The fourth thing that I believe is going to happen is directly tied to the third, and that is going to be new influenced items and or new currency, as well as new boss specific uniques. And since it is going to be something that is a higher level than Eater of Worlds and Searing Exarch, the items that this thing drops are going to have to be extremely powerful and extremely valuable. That's the only way I can see it working. Otherwise, what would be the point of killing this brand new in-game boss? So the new boss is going to give us some kind of like specific influence item with really powerful modifiers, or it's going to have really strong items in its drop table alone, right? Because in comparison, it has to be a one-up essentially from Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds, and the unique items that they drop are incredibly strong, as well as Maven, right? The items that and currency that they drop are incredibly strong. So the items we receive from this new pinnacle boss are going to have to be incredibly strong. I don't know if it's going to be something as stupid and cheeky as like you can now triple influence an item, or this new currency allows you to have influence with implicits. What I mean by that is like a synthesized item, you're able to move those synthesized modifiers onto like an elder base or something like that. That would be incredibly broken. It would shatter the current ceiling for items that we have right now, destroying all mirror tier items if that was able. Because the biggest downside to synthesized items is it can't have that influence. So if they do something like that, I'm sorry, where you can put an implicit on a influenced item, that's going to be incredibly strong. And I can kind of see it going that way, but they would have to introduce several new currencies to actually manage it. Up next at number 5 are a couple of the things that I'm not quite as sure about if we're going to actually receive them, right? The first 4 things were kind of, we've received them every expansion. It would not make sense if they did not include them in this expansion. But that is going to be changes or reworks to ascendancies down here, right? Anything in this like 4 and below, I feel like we're going to see some pretty big changes to those ascendancies, because this is a second week of a league, right? And if we go down to week 3, you'll see that these bottom half of ascendancies, they never really change, right? These ascendancies are always the same. They're always at the bottom, and that's just because they're in a particularly bad state. Like, look at this. No matter what week I go to, it's not like any more people are saying, oh, I farmed enough currency, let me swap builds. These are ascendancies that just don't meet up with current expectations, right? They're too weak. We need to see changes in these ascendancies. And I'm opening this up pretty wide. I'm saying Assassin, Saboteur, Berserker, Necromancer, Elementalist, Occultist, Inquisitor, or Guardian, or Ascendant. One of, if not multiple of these ascendancies are going to get tweaked and or changed. I'm calling that right now. Like I said, this is something more abstract though, right? I don't 100% see this making it, depending on how much time they actually worked on the expansion. Because this is something that we haven't received every expansion, right? We've received it in some, but not every. So that's going to be the next thing that I'm calling, is we're going to see some ascendancy rebalances and stuff like that, because a good chunk of ascendancies are just unplayed because they are not good enough. I mean, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ascendancies are pretty much just not played. That brings us to number 6, our either last or second to last thing that I believe is going to happen. Now, this one is a stretch because gems did just get reworked in 3.23, right? That's what gave us transfigured gems. But another consistency that you see in expansions is we usually get some new gems, right? If not a change to how the gems work. So I'm saying that as well. We're either going to receive something like this, an advanced version of the support gems being dropped from this new boss, or just a bunch of new skill gems, right? We've had 3 years for them to at least come up with some skills. So at a bare minimum, I'm going to say they're going to be putting in 2 gems, and at a maximum, they're just going to completely rework the transfigured gem system, which I think they like, and I think a lot of people also like. So I don't see them doing anything to this, but at the very least, I can see them adding a lot of new transfigured gems, or cutting out a bunch of these dead ones that are literally 0.001% use, right? One of those 2 things is going to happen. Preferably, I think that it would be really cool if we got something like awakened gems, like elevated gems, like um you can sacrifice the the awakened gem and like elevate it to another tier, destroying the item, right? This would give awakened gems like a value, because right now there's only very few awakened gems that are actually worth anything, right? But if you had the ability of using a currency on an awakened gem, uh, uh, an awakened gem, and what it did is increase its power or give it like an additional effect, that would be a very good currency sink for not only the new currency they're introducing, but for the awakened gems themselves. Let's say it's something like you can use it on it, but it has a chance of destroying it or bricking it, similar to a Val Orb, but it just does something different. Because right now there's no sync for awakened gems, and they drop so frequently that only the really like top 0.1% of awakened gems are even valuable. The rest are usually worth nothing. And the seventh and final thing that I can think of is just a child league, right? Every expansion has a child league. In War for the Atlas, it was Abyss. In the Conquerors of the Atlas, it was Metamorph. Echoes of the Atlas was Ritual, and Siege of the Atlas was Arch Nemesis. This is the league that goes along with the expansion. So we're going to be receiving all of this stuff from the expansion and all of the stuff from the league and league mechanic itself. All this to say that 3.26 definitely should be relatively huge, because it's been cooking for over 3 years. If we look at a comparison, the closest time frame would literally be War for the Atlas to Conquerors to the Atlas, right? That's about that's less. That's 2 years, right? This much changed in 2 years. So I'm only assuming 3 years, even with them working on PoE 2 majorly, we should get a decent chunk of content, as well as a shake up to the meta, maybe some new mirror tier items, maybe some power creep, a super fun league, right? A bunch of new currencies, maybe some quality of life. Fingers crossed, but we gotta wait 2 weeks to see. So I'm gonna, like I said in the previous video, every time I see something important enough to make a video about, I'll make a video. But other than that, I'm just going to be waiting for a 3.26 with tempered expectations, right? I know the vast majority of the team's been working on PoE 2 for such a long time. I don't even know how much of the last 3 years people have even worked on PoE 1. So I have rather tempered expectations, but I'm still relatively hyped for the upcoming expansion, because it's been so long since we've had any kind of huge shakeup that an expansion can bring. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with this and future comments. Do you agree? Do you think that it's going to be a banger, or do you think it's going to be shit? Let me know down in the comments. But yeah, that's it. Take care.